In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone Eli and Gerhard Mathangani.
Well, the dust is settled from another conference championship weekend. Some things we expected to see, like Texas Tech winning their conference championship, Georgia also winning the SEC, but there are a lot of surprises in the aftermath of conference championship weekend. The college football playoff has been set, and teams moving up and, more importantly, moving down in the final rankings by the committee over in Grapevine, Texas on Sunday. Welcome into Southeast Sports Plus. I'm Gerhard Mathangani, joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, we knew that there would be some drama here, and I'll give people a look behind the curtain, because one of the things that you said, we had a group text going on. One of the things that you said going into it is that you thought that Miami might be the team that is in. Not a lot of drama at the top. We know there's 5 conference champions, so one of the three teams, 2 spots, one was going to get squeezed out, and of course it's the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
You know, there was one thing that really solidified why I thought that Miami was ultimately going to get in over Notre Dame, and it goes back to last week's rankings when we saw Notre Dame fall below Alabama, even though Alabama just barely squeaked out a win over Auburn.
Right.
Meanwhile, Notre Dame convincingly beat Stanford.
Right.
Good job. I mean, you should win that game.
Exactly.
And you can make the same argument for Alabama. But the second I saw that, all it took for Miami was the hope that BYU would lose that game, because then you could make the argument that BYU would have moved down.
Correct.
And then Miami would move up to that 11 spot.
Right.
And so then we have exactly what the committee wasn't looking at before, and that was, well, Miami and Notre Dame haven't been side by side just yet, so the head-to-head has not mattered.
Right.
Once they put themselves right next to each other, I was like, it's over.
It's glaring.
Miami is going to be in over Notre Dame. And I mean, you can hate the decision all you want, but ultimately, when 2 teams are so equal to one another, like literally neck and neck with one another, you have to rely on the head-to-head.
Right.
When you look at the record, when you look at the strength of schedule, when you look at the strength of record, and you look at all the other factors that play into it, they're neck and neck with one another, and that's why it was right next to each other. But it ultimately falls. I get it. I get it, Notre Dame fans. I totally understand.
Right.
Week 1 was, it feels like 2 years ago. But you got to rely on the head-to-head. Otherwise, if that wasn't the case, the sport would be doomed. I hate to admit it.
This is one of those weird situations where I get everything. I get why I think the committee did the right thing overall. They went back to the head-to-head. But the committee's process to get here, that was the issue for everybody. And I think we heard a lot of that in the questioning when Reese Davis was questioning the head of the CFP, Hunter Yurchak. Hey, like, why did this not matter all the way until the very end? So I get it. If you're the committee, you finally, like you said, you put them side by side. It shouldn't have taken the BYU loss to be able to do that. No. But they finally put them side by side and said, okay, yes, Miami did win that game on the field. And I also get it from the Notre Dame perspective of saying, hey, look, the head-to-head hadn't mattered all year long, and then now it finally matters. And so I get them being upset as well. I think a lot of people there's some backlash, but because everything that happened afterwards, Notre Dame saying no to a bowl game, they're not going to play in a bowl, and it feels like some sour grapes. But I feel like this committee finally did the right job. The process was terrible, and I think we have to restart revisiting a few things. One of them is, I think the committee, when they said, hey, you're 5 conference champions, 5 highest ranked conference champions, I know the committee said that thinking we're not going to have any issue with that because they're 5 highest ranked conference champions. They're going to be willing and fitting to go. But then when 5-loss Duke wins the ACC, now you're in this conundrum where you have to put 2 group of 5 teams in, and I am glad the G5 is getting a seat at the table. But this is the year where it's like, if you put James Madison head-to-head with Notre Dame, it's a pretty easy scenario of who's better. You put Texas there with Tulane or Notre Dame, it's an easy scenario. So where I think it's kind of screwed up for college football fans is the whole bracket was to get the 12 best teams in, and it doesn't feel like it's getting the 12 best teams in based on both their framework and their process.
No, and we'll take a look at the bracket here. Obviously, JMU getting that spot over Duke. I think that was, according to what the groundwork was laid out before the season and how the committee was going to evaluate teams, that was the correct call based on that criteria.
Yeah.
While I think, in my personal opinion, I think Oregon-Duke would have been a better game.
Absolutely.
It's still following the right criteria for JMU to get into this game. Alabama-Oklahoma is going to open up the college football playoff, and let me tell you, you pointed this out yesterday, and we'll take a look at some of the lines here in the next block here, but honestly, it's a little bit shocking that Alabama is favored in that game.
On the road.
And I know we have two potential blowouts here, Tulane, Ole Miss, as well as JMU, Oregon. I think the Alabama-Oklahoma game might be, in my honest opinion, one of the worst games of the weekend. I seriously think it could be like a 2007 SEC 7-6 final, just two offenses that just cannot do anything. And then obviously the big one there at the bottom, Miami taking on Texas A&M. What I like about this, though, is Indiana and Ohio State. I know this is an SEC show. You pointed out to me off the show yesterday that you thought Georgia might move up to number 2.
Yeah.
I think it's the correct call to keep Indiana and Ohio State at 1-2 because for a couple of reasons, and we've seen it here in our area with high school football. It seems like, the two best teams in the state seem to match up in the semifinals rather than the championship. So, I mean, this sets up the potential for what I think. Look, Georgia dominated Alabama the other day. But I still think Indiana and Ohio State are the two best teams in college football, and it sets up a potential rematch in the national championship rather than the semifinal.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I really had no beef with Georgia being number 3 as opposed to number 2 because I think you can make the argument really either way. Indiana, obviously the clear-cut favorite. Ohio State's literally only loss of the season, is the now new number 1 team in the country, and you saw a Georgia team. They've had some struggles. Obviously, they avenged that loss to Alabama, but they've had some struggles there as well. And like you said, you almost have to think of it big picture. If everything goes chalk, let's just say every, the better seed wins every game. You want number 1, number 2 in the national championship game. And as of right now, that is Indiana, Ohio State.
Yeah, and it just, I honestly think they are probably on a collision course, barring some crazy catastrophe that one of the teams just gets upset. But I mean, we saw this same scenario with Ohio State last year. The last game they lost before the playoff was 13-10. They lost the Big Ten championship 13-10. So it'll be interesting. Let's take a look at the final regular season rankings for the college football playoff now. I know we'll get one final one once the playoff is over from the committee. So North Texas, my mean green. It is unfortunate.
I will say, though, that this is the committee saying basically that you were right. You've been on the mean green machine for a very long time, and this is basically saying had they won the conference championship game, they'd be in, but also giving them love ahead of maybe another Power 4 team that was on the outside looking in, maybe a Tennessee or a Missouri or whatever. Putting North Texas in lets you know how much respect the committee had for them.
And I think they would have been the 11 seed. I think they just dropped below JMU because they lost, and obviously JMU is the number 12 seed in the college football playoff. Iowa will take on Vanderbilt in the ReliaQuest Bowl. We'll talk with Corey Curtis later and get his projections on that. Georgia Tech and then Houston rounding out that group of 5 there, moving inside the top 20. Tulane, John Summerall is going to take his talents over to Gainesville, so it'll be interesting. Florida fans might get a little bit of a preview here, and he's going to have a tough rematch against Ole Miss, where in the first game they lost by 5 touchdowns.
But exactly, and I think that's an interesting thing going into this, because when you talk about the conference champions, I wonder if that's something that the college football playoff committee will tweak because of what happened this year. And you're right, you do get a game that we have seen before. We saw Alabama, Oklahoma, but I don't think anybody's really complaining about that. But we saw Tulane and Ole Miss play, and you have to ask yourself, if their committee, is this what you want? And anything can happen in a rematch. In Oklahoma, Tulane could shock the world and win that football game.
Who knows if Pete Golding can lead a team? I mean, we don't know yet. I know Charlie Weiss Jr. is coming back to call plays, and they still have Joe Judge, but still, I mean, it's a new head honcho, so to speak, and your main guy is going to be watching from Baton Rouge, hoping to cash in.
All right, and if I find it really interesting that Tulane, it's so ironic because Tulane will go out there, we'll try out there with John Summerall, and on the other sideline you had the fiasco that's happening with Ole Miss, where their coach was basically kicked out and told not to. It almost shows you that there's ways to handle a coaching search, and I think Tulane is a little bit more understanding of Summerall's situation going to Florida than Ole Miss is understanding about Lane Kiffin going to LSU. I think Ole Miss fans view it as, hey, in 2025, that's a lateral move that we don't really respect. And Tulane understanding, hey, he's going up a notch and taking that Florida job.
I think it also might be a little bit of an advantage for Tulane because not only have you played them before, it's hard to beat a team twice. I don't care what level you're at, but you see the fiasco that went on over there. It's just pure chaos in Oxford.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are probably overlooking this Tulane team. John Summerall is going to want to get a win for Tulane heading into the SEC next year. And I mean, former Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin said John Summerall is going to be in the SEC next year. Well, I mean, he proved it. And honestly, when we start getting into the top 10 here, and we start talking about the top 10, I thought Ole Miss might have jumped Oregon just because they have something that Oregon doesn't, and it's a win over a conference champion in Tulane. Right. And I didn't know if the committee was going to want to get a rematch in, but nevertheless, I think Tulane's probably happy that they're just heading up to Oxford rather than all the way to Eugene.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the way it was seated was absolutely perfect. A quick little bus ride right up the road there to Oxford.
Yes, and moving inside the top 15 here's where it starts to get frisky for everyone. Utah at 15. Vanderbilt, the story of Diego Pavia and Clark Lee trying to play that 13th game. Corey Curtis tried to will his team into the playoff. It's just it wasn't the year. Maybe next year or maybe in 2 years when the playoff expands that Vanderbilt might, or maybe next year with Gerhard Curtis coming in, 5-star plus quarterback, #1 prospect,
which is unbelievable.
Going to Vanderbilt,
the highest ranked player Vandy's ever had.
Yes. Texas tried to make it in as a 3-loss team, unable to. BYU falls, and we talked about it a little bit, even though, I mean, in my opinion, you shouldn't punish conference championship or for making the conference championship, but we knew the committee was going to do this to put Notre Dame and Miami side by side, and that's exactly what they did.
Yep.
And so Notre Dame, unfortunately, is on the wrong side of the bubble, but we'll keep it going here. We'll move inside the top 10.
Yeah, before we do that, do you agree with? Because I think I have one tweak. I would have thrown BYU behind, and I'm not just doing SEC homer stuff. I would have thrown BYU behind both Texas and Vanderbilt. Because the two games, they don't have I mean, they have some good wins, but they don't have a quality win. And the 2 times they stepped up and played one of the power teams, they scored 7 points in both games. And both games were blowouts to Texas Tech. The regular season game was a blowout. The conference championship game was a blowout. I think because of that, I would have slid. I know by record it probably doesn't make sense, especially against a 3-loss Texas team. But I just think the way BYU was playing against top-tier competition, I would have thrown them behind both Texas and Vanderbilt in that 14th spot and have Texas and Vandy go up.
I think that's fair because no diss on the Big 12 or anything, but if you put Vanderbilt or Texas with that BYU schedule, I honestly think they probably go
run the table.
Yeah,
and maybe a loss to Texas Tech.
Yeah, but I don't see either of those teams losing to Texas Tech twice.
Correct, yes, in fashion.
By the way they did. I mean, it looked like, did you even practice? Like, did you even have a game plan? I mean, they just looked like they did not belong. And, well, we'll go right into the top 10 now, Miami, and then another team that kind of looked like maybe they didn't belong and is going to be the topic of controversy, as well as the Alabama Crimson Tide. The first, I got to correct myself earlier in the year, they are the first at-large team to make the college football playoff with 3 losses. I forgot Clemson last year made it with 3 losses, but they were the auto qualifier. That'll set up a rematch with Oklahoma, who has kind of been their kryptonite the last 2 years. Kept them out last year, almost kept them out this year.
Yep.
And then Texas A&M and Ole Miss at 6 and 7. And then inside the top 5 for the first time, we have a little bit of a shakeup at 1 and 2, and that's because Fernando Mendoza and Indiana win their first outright Big Ten title since World War II.
That's insane.
I mean, goodness.
That's insane. They're absolutely on top of the world right now. And Kirk Cignetti is showing the world that you could do it from anywhere. I think Kirk Cignetti winning at Indiana, if you're just a fan of college football, I'm rooting for that story. Maybe not that team, but I'm rooting for that story to be good, because what it does show you is you could be almost anywhere in the Power 5. Because I think that if you were just doing it from a pedigree standpoint, what the Big Ten is, I think obviously you slate Ohio State, Michigan, at times even Michigan State. Then, of course, you add those West Coast teams. So you have Oregon, USC, at times UCLA. I'm just talking pure pedigree, not this year, pure pedigree. And Indiana probably falls somewhere in the middle to the bottom part of that conference. Yeah. And for them to now be not only a conference champion, but the number 1 seed with the true potential to win a college football playoff game, I think it makes sense in my brain, for people to say, hey, you could do it from where you are.
Right.
And I know it's harder from a James Madison, but if you're Indiana, if you're Ole Miss, if you're not one of these traditional powers that has a bunch of national championship trophies to your name, this is a good story, in my opinion, for people to root for.
Look, Lane Kiffin, there's no doubt about it that he has a history of just getting up and leaving. And I know he tried to say that he found himself in Oxford and that he was like, that's his home.
Right.
But I mean, sometimes the true you does come out, and I mean, he decided, you know what, LSU was a better opportunity. But here's the thing. Kurt Cignetti's doing this all through the transfer portal.
Exactly.
Just wait until Indiana starts pulling 4 and 5 stars. I mean, we're talking. It's a little early to say this, but we could see a Nick Saban-esque type run.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's doing this just through the portal,
right?
And I mean, Fernando Mendoza didn't really have a good year last year at Cal. Cal wasn't a great team at all.
Right.
But he just has this hidden ability. He found it with Curtis Rourke last year, and now he found it with Fernando Mendoza, and he's got the younger Mendoza coming up as well. I know he got I believe he only had 1 snap in that game after Mendoza kind of took a shot early in. But before we go to break, I do want to talk a little bit about Alabama.
Yeah,
because obviously this is an SEC show, and there was a lot of talk about, Notre Dame fans wanted Alabama out and Notre Dame in because they lost the 3rd game. But I want to know, do you think it was the right call to keep them in the playoff?
I do, because I don't want the precedent to be set that if you have to play that 13th game, if you have to play a conference championship game, then you are you're almost doing yourself a disservice.
Right.
Because to me, to have Texas A&M sitting out, to have Ole Miss sitting out, I know a loss in the SEC championship game would have given them 2 losses instead of 3, but I do think that, is Alabama playing the best football right now? No. Does Alabama's resume deserve to have them in? Absolutely. Now, let them go into the playoff and then let them show that they're not one of the top 2 teams. I would have a big problem with them if the reason why they were out is because they had to play that game with Texas and Texas A&M, or Texas A&M and Ole Miss did not.
Right, and I mean, when you look at the resume comparison, I mean, it's not even the same, honestly.
For sure.
I mean, both the strength of schedule and the strength of record are in the top 10. Yeah, they don't really pass the eye test right now, but you have to bank on the fact that they have all of these big wins, because why would you even play these games if you're just not going to take it into consideration?
Correct.
4-2 against ranked teams. Obviously, that 1 loss against an unranked team sticks out, and that's been the topic of controversy in that regard. But I still think the precedent was set last year with SMU making the playoff, even though they lost to Clemson. And it's going to stay that way, because you cannot. We're already starting to de-incentivize conference championship games.
Yes.
And all that would have done, if you kept Alabama out of the playoff this year, would have been like, why am I even playing a conference championship when I'm sitting in the 9 or the 10 spot right now, and I could lose and then get out of the playoff? Like, why would I even try to play that?
Right. Especially a team like Alabama that's already sitting on those 2 losses. If I'm Alabama, I'd say I would have said, hey, this does us no favors if we go in there and lose this game, much less have the injuries, because Alabama's already banged up anyways. And if they were to have that in the back, to me, it would be a terrible precedent. So I like the fact that the committee did that. I think overall the committee did the right things, given the framework. It's interesting, how they all, got it in there and got it on. We are excited to have a couple of great guests on today's show. We will have our typical Monday staple in Roger Wallace joining us from Austin, and then Corey Curtis will join us from Nashville. Both these guys cover programs just outside of the college football playoff, but a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge about college football. We will talk about that. Alabama in, Notre Dame out. Texas, a huge game against Michigan in the Citrus Bowl. Georgia over Alabama in the SEC championship game. And could the SEC's I guess, quarterback du jour, the player of the year, so to speak, of the SEC. Could he come back with a Heisman Trophy from New York? We will see. Talk some Diego Pavia with Corey a little bit later on. Coming up next year on Southeast Sports Plus, we break down this bracket a little bit more before our two guests join us here on a Monday. Stay with us. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. Of course, a lot to dive into as the college football playoff is now set. The 12 teams are in. A lot of talk in and around the teams that made it, especially in the 9, 10, 11 hole, and the 12 hole, obviously, with James Madison joining out of the Sun Belt Conference. Gerhard Mathangani, Patrick Walsh with you. Patrick, the team, obviously, that is left out of this whole thing is Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. And we have talked about this from the position of what the committee did. But yes, as you break down this football team, I think a lot of the people who have angst about what happened here is typically like in the NCAA tournament, when you're debating teams that should be in, should be out. It's like, okay, well, we're talking about team 69 or whatever, 69, 70. Mm-hmm. They're not teams that you think can win the national championship. I think that's the opposite case here, because the way Notre Dame was playing makes you think they are a true contender.
Look, I mean, here's the thing. Notre Dame has no one to blame but themselves.
Sure.
I mean, they lost the 2 games that were major resume boosters, and I know the athletic director came out today and said that, you know, the ACC has done irreparable harm to Notre Dame. And again, that's your own fault. I mean, you can't just blame
I didn't get that, by the way. I didn't get the Notre Dame AD saying that.
You can't just blame a conference,
right,
when you're the one that scheduled them.
Yes.
You're tied to them in every other sport.
You're halfway in, halfway out.
So what are you going to do? You're going to leave the ACC in baseball, basketball, and all of your other sports just to go join what, the Big Ten? I mean, that would make a little bit more sense, because the Big Ten headquarters is like 2 hours away.
They have a Big Ten tie-in in like hockey or something like that. I think it's like hockey there, I think it's hockey, or maybe wrestling or whatever. But yeah, you're right. Like every other conference affiliation is the ACC. And to me, if you're the AD, I understand being upset.
Right.
But to blame the conference seems ridiculous.
You scheduled it.
You're halfway in. You're 1 foot in that league, 1 foot out of that league.
Correct.
And so you want to be able to boast the ACC in every other realm outside of
correct
when it comes down to this, because essentially you played in AC. You tailor-made your schedule, by the way. So no, let's not forget that you scheduled this because you're independent, and you have common opponents, and you lost the game on the field. If you were in the league, you would likely have a chance to play in that college in the championship game. They did this to themselves. They made this bet. I didn't get that when he was talking. I think it was on Dan Patrick's show when he said that. I didn't get that at all.
I never understood it. And, you know, again, you have no one to blame but yourself. But here's the thing. Do I think Notre Dame passes the eye test? Absolutely. if we go off of strictly eye test only and no other factors,
right?
Just the eye test, and we'll go back to this graphic here. Yes, Notre Dame is a better team than Alabama.
Yes, and they're playing better.
Wise,
right.
And they're playing better.
Correct.
But this is why we have all of these other factors here too, because congrats, you beat, I want to say it was 2 teams that you beat that had a record of above 500 by the end of the year.
Right.
Congrats, you beat a Syracuse team 70-7 that had a litany of injuries.
Right.
You won by 5 on the road against a Boston College team that won 2 games all year. And I know it might seem like I'm harsh on Notre Dame. I mean, I do have a little bit of a soft spot for the Irish because I do think they are a good team, and this is not going to have any this doesn't matter at all. I'm Irish personally, so there's just there's
a kinship there. Yeah,
it's just I don't understand the argument when you played one less game than Alabama, you don't join a conference, and you don't play in a conference championship game.
Right.
If you want to be in the playoffs so bad over an Alabama team that won 10-3, that went 10-3.
Yeah.
They join a conference.
Join a conference. And there's some people that are talking from the Notre Dame standpoint. I think some of this might be what's the word? Some of this might be conspiracy theory talk that this is the establishment, this is the higher ups almost forcing Notre Dame to join a conference. And what I would say is leave it out of their hands.
Yes.
How do you do it? And you mentioned this. It'd be different if they were undefeated but beat a bunch of nobodies and they got left out. I would say, okay, maybe because you did it on the field, maybe you have a reason to be in. But you scheduled 2 teams that gave you the opportunity to make this college football playoff. You scheduled Texas A&M, right? And they're both in.
And you lost both games.
Correct, and you lost both those games at the beginning of the season. Kudos to you for credit for scheduling it, because, and I say same thing about Texas, and I'll say this when Roger comes on. I congratulate Texas for scheduling Ohio State, but part of the goodwill of that is you give yourself the opportunity to lose that game, and then now you have another data point to be out of it. So I congratulate them for scheduling Miami, congratulate them for scheduling Texas A&M, but at the end of the day, they lost those games, and it's not Stanford's fault. Yes, I get they beat Pitt. But what did Pitt's coach say the week before?
I don't care if we lose by 100.
Thank you. Why? Because they don't have a conference. And so,
and then congrats. You beat a Syracuse team that Miami only beat by 30. Well, guess what? You beat them by 63 while they were playing their walk-on quarterback who's only there for lacrosse. Like, good job. I'm so glad that you managed to do that. You won 70-7 at home, and your quarterback didn't touch the ball until you were already up 21-0. Good job, but schedule tougher opponents, and don't come out and say your relationship with the ACC is damaged beyond repair.
Right.
Because you scheduled the bottom half of the ACC, and the ACC had a bad year. That's no one's fault but your own.
Exactly. And we talked about the early lines going into this one. Some of these, and I'll just be honest, some of these, if you're just doing a blind one, I get it. Like, I get James Madison, Oregon. I get that number, 3 touchdowns. The one that is like crazy to me is Alabama, Oklahoma. I have a principle that when the line doesn't make sense, you go with the side that doesn't make sense, that tells you just, hold your nose and bet Alabama. I just don't get how this committee, and I want to talk to an odds maker to say, okay, what's the logic here? Yeah. Because Alabama has not looked good in the last 2 road games, and I don't know how you just saw what you just saw in Atlanta and say, hey, Bama's a favorite.
I mean, the only thing I could think of is just it's so hard to beat a team twice, but I'm also looking at the over-under, and it's set at 40.5.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean, that might be generous as well. I still think this could be like a 7-6 final score.
Easily.
With just 2 really bad offenses as of late. Going at 2 really good defenses as of late. Miami at Texas A&M. I was talking to you about this yesterday. I think this is going to be the game of the weekend, honestly.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
You look at the other games, Tulane at Ole Miss, 16.5, and then James Madison at Oregon. I mean, again, you brought it up. I'm glad we're getting the group of 5s in.
Yeah.
But if we want the best 12 teams in college football, I think you could have made the exception for Boise State last year, because I think they could have won a game last year.
Right.
Either Tulane or James Madison. I don't think they win a single game.
I don't think it's so either. And I think that, like I said, you can invite them to the dance. But it doesn't always make the dance the best product ever. So we'll see how that all shakes out. over the next couple of weeks. I think that first game is next Friday. Alabama
correct.
and Oklahoma playing that game in Norman. We will get the thoughts of one of our favorite people on this show, Roger Wallace. We will talk the college football playoff and the Texas Longhorns, both in football and on the court. Stay with us. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. Hour number 1 continues, and we were talking with our good friend Roger Wallace, and one of the things we said on the front end was, hey, Roger, we're going to talk obviously a lot of Texas. We talked Texas last week. You nailed it that they will be on the outside looking into the college football playoff. But then you said, I got some beef with your thoughts about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. So that's exactly where we will begin, because that is a topic du jour so far of the day with Notre Dame. What did you make of the college football playoff committee, where they landed, especially where the Irish landed?
All right, first, full disclosure, I grew up in southwestern Ohio. A lot of good chance you're either Ohio State fan or Notre Dame fan.
Okay.
I was a Notre Dame fan.
Yeah.
All right, so we got that out of the way. And I have no problem Notre Dame not being in the field.
Yeah.
What I have a problem is what I think everyone that does have a problem with it is, why do you drag Notre Dame along for however many selection show or ranking shows they had ahead of Miami, and all of a sudden after they won every game in between, you drop them below Miami and say, well, it was because we moved BYU, and once they were matched together, then we have to judge the head-to-head. And we talked about this in the break. They could have had a 2-minute conversation the first week and saying, people, we can't have Notre Dame ahead of Miami because Miami beat them head-to-head. Mm-hmm. Simple.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
What am I missing?
Yeah, nothing. Sincerely, nothing. And I was upset with the process there as well. And it almost felt, it almost felt like they were like insulting our intelligence. Like, okay, hey, like we finally took into account the head-to-head once they got next to each other, side by side. You made a great point though about, and the reason why I think, and Patrick was talking about this as well, the reason why I think there's a lot more anger about this is because Notre Dame does look like a team that can win the national championship. And they were obviously in it last year. It's a different quarterback, but same head coach and a really talented football team. And you mentioned something about their scheduling during the break that I thought was really interesting. A lot of people attack Notre Dame because they don't play in a conference. However, they do play a legitimate schedule with Power 4 squads.
All Power 4s except the Service Academy, and you can't argue that Navy isn't capable of giving anybody fits on any week. And again, there are a lot of programs that are down when these schedules were made. We're not. They play USC, Texas A&M, Miami, Pittsburgh. North Carolina State certainly had their share of success over the years. You can go on, but this year just happened to be a down schedule.
Right.
And so, then you start looking at the schedule, and I get the whole conference argument, but that's not going away.
Yeah.
They're going to stay independent, so they have the flexibility, and it's a safe bet that schools that would have that opportunity would probably do that if they could have their own network attached to that. And look at Texas with the Longhorn Network. They were fortunate enough to be in a conference and have their own network, but most schools just don't have that ability.
Yeah.
Roger, do you think that Notre Dame fans have more of a gripe missing out because of Miami or because of the Alabama result and the way that Alabama lost the SEC championship on Saturday?
Well, then you're talking about emotion, so take your pick because they're not in. But I would say more so the Alabama makes more sense because how can you be upset if you're not in over a team that beat you head-to-head? I get it was week one, but we've been banging the drum that, all the games have to matter. Texas, while they went to Ohio State, they did lose to Ohio State. And don't tell me that the committee didn't look at that, it was the Florida loss. Well, the Ohio State loss made the Florida loss number 2, not loss number 1.
Right.
So they're human. And then the Alabama situation comes in, and they can hide behind the fact that they shouldn't be penalized to play in the SEC game, so they're going to be the first 3-loss team in. And, oh, by the way, they didn't move in the rankings. Texas last year moved from 3 to 4 after losing an overtime game to Georgia. You say, well, what's the big deal? Well, one, last year they had to play a first game because it wasn't just the first 4. Now, you can argue that didn't matter. Look at the championship matchup. Ohio State and Notre Dame both played, but they wouldn't have had to play Ohio State in the semifinals if they were the 3. So you can go on down the line and kind of make your own argument for your own case, and that's what kind of amuses me about some of the arguments. It's clearly what they think, so that's the thing. I think the argument you can't deny is if Notre Dame's ahead in every ranking up until the final one and there's no change in any results, and then they jump Miami, then they were planning on doing it the whole time. That one I don't think Miami fans can deny, Notre Dame fans can deny, and Notre Dame haters can deny, which there are a lot of them. And that's why they're such a lightning rod.
Absolutely. Final thing here on Notre Dame before we jump over to Texas. There's a faction of people that are either Notre Dame or maybe Notre Dame adjacent that are saying that this result is to try for the establishment to force Notre Dame to go into a conference and play in a legitimate conference, whether it's the Big Ten or the ACC. How much of that do you buy into it, or is that just kind of tinfoil hat conspiracy theory?
Yeah, because they're pretty adamant about that. Back in the old days, Notre Dame didn't play in bowl games because that was just the way they were, and they operate by a different set of standards, and that's why they have so many haters, and they're okay with that. I think they relish that, and they're getting that NBC money, so I think they're okay. But my argument would be, and I think Pete Bavacqua would say, first ACC fixture playoff tiebreaker.
Yes.
and then come on. So I mean, they boxed themselves in with that. Why wasn't Miami playing for an ACC championship instead of Duke? Oh, by the way, coached by Manny Diaz, whose dad is the former mayor of Miami, but we got sidetracked here.
Yeah.
No, I don't think this is going to hurt Notre Dame. Notre Dame's got that clause next year. If they're in the top 12, they're automatically in.
Yeah.
So now do they bump them to 13 if they have two losses and no championship game? So I don't know. I mean, if they go to 16, we're going to argue about something.
Yeah.
Texas had their argument, and Sark was banging the drum hard early last week, and then by signing day, when Tuesday rolled around and they didn't move in the rankings, he was kind of resigned the fact that they were on the outside looking in. They have 2 wins over playoff teams and 2 losses to playoff teams, so that's my math says 4 playoff teams they played. So everybody's got their beef. I don't know what Vanderbilt's beef was ahead of Texas since they lost, but they seem to think because they were 10-2 that they deserve to be in over Texas. But everybody's got their reasoning.
Yeah, no question about it. You touched on Texas, and Texas will play what I think is an awesome logo game between Texas and Michigan, playing in the Citrus Bowl. Obviously, what do you make of that matchup as you look forward to it? 2 teams that you obviously at the beginning of the season, maybe a little shaky for both squads, found themselves a little bit. I think both teams are kind of in a similar position as they move forward into this game, and this game can kind of serve as a springboard moving forward with 2 quarterbacks that we are expected to be really 2 of the top ones next year.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to anger people, but I understand teams that opt out because of, for one reason or another. What is Texas going to do with Arch Manning in this game? And Sark was not asked about that as much as just the general idea of players opting out, declaring for the draft. We saw that today with Anthony Hill. But do they treat it like an NFL preseason game? Maybe play Arch for a half and then play either Matthew Caldwell and reward him for that throw against Mississippi State, basically, or the young guy, KJ Lacey, the true freshman. And what does Michigan do with their prize quarterback and their multi-million-dollar guy, Bryce Underwood, who, by the way, a mobile guy against a really good defense? Do you want to risk him getting dinged up in an injury in a bowl game? That could mean you lose the entire season.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I'm going to be interested to see. How do they handle playing this game now that it even more than ever? And we're in a different world here because for the last 2 years, Texas has played in the playoffs, so that hadn't been an issue. The first bowl game for Sark, they went down to San Antonio without Bijan Robinson, without Roschon Johnson, without DeMarvion Overshown, and they didn't fare very well. But how do you judge them on that? So I don't know how coaches handle these bowl games other than enjoy the fact that they get the practices and they get a trip and they get some gifts and things like that. But these kids are getting paid, so I don't know if a Best Buy gift card really means a whole lot now.
Roger, it's no secret that Texas would probably grade this season as a failure, coming in as the preseason #1 team and missing the college football playoff. But if you were to give this team a letter grade before this bowl game, what would you give it and why?
Yeah, I guess I would give it a C. They still were there until the end in their eyes. They beat some good teams. They kept Texas A&M out of a chance to win their first conference title since 1998. They developed Arch Manning. I think everyone would agree that Arch Manning now looks like the quarterback that everyone expected him to be in July. But they went to Florida and they lost. And they lost to a Florida team that wasn't very good, but, oh, by the way, blew out a Florida State team that beat Alabama. But then I'm getting sidetracked again. Sorry about that. That was the killer, because that was number 3. You can live with an Ohio State loss wrapped around a Georgia loss, but you can't get that middle loss. So I would say it was average. They still have a chance to win 10 games. But in some respects, guys, they're not in the 12 team. And what are we playing for? Realistically anymore, but either being in the 12 team or having I mean, look at Duke.
Yeah,
they had a celebration.
Yes.
I mean, they got a conference title. They're talking about on cloud 9 right now, sitting with 5 losses. But Texas got none of that. So I'd say it was an average season, below average when you talk about the fact that it's kind of now we've built the system for playoff or bust, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think people, thumb their nose at, if it's not about the playoff, we're just going to take our ball and go home. Well, we've created that.
Yes.
And the bowls for years, since the BCS, really, it's inventory for the 4-letter network. And yeah, I know. And the trips are different now. They're not going to go for a week.
Right.
Texas, I think, is going on the 26th, late on the 26th, games on the 31st. But again, it's just the system has changed. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
But, I remember going to a Cotton Bowl for like 8 days leading up to the Cotton Bowl. And they had all those events, and, it was all that. And then you look at like a Texas State here in Central Texas. They're going to Fort Worth for their reward.
Right.
Last 2 years, they went to Dallas for their reward.
Yeah.
Houston's staying in Houston.
Right.
The Alamo Bowl didn't want Houston because they don't travel well. That's about a 3-hour drive down I-10.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's a far cry from
different world.
Yeah, it's a far cry from teams who used to going to the Bahamas and Hawaii and
That's right.
like destination spots, Vegas and
steak eating contests
right.
at the Cotton Bowl and all that stuff. I don't know if they're going to Disney World or not when they go to Orlando. I haven't seen the schedule yet, but they'll have a good time and they'll put their best face forward about it all. But it's an exhibition game to fill up the network.
Yep, absolutely. With every year, roster construction is like kind of one of the biggest things. Who do you expect, or maybe some of the prime candidates from this year's team that might not be Longhorns next season?
Well, the biggest name so far is C.J. Baxter. Yeah. He's announced that he's going into the portal, and this is a guy you feel for him because injuries really ravaged him. He had a really good freshman year, missed all his sophomore year, came back, and then got injured early in the UTEP game. You see Trey Owens, he was a highly touted quarterback, but I'm surprised he was still here this year the way the portal works, and he got moved down to the 4 on the depth chart with Matt Caldwell, the transfer, and then KJ Lacey, the true freshman. So you expect that. I'm not sure what KJ Lacey does because Diabell's coming in, one of the top quarterbacks in this class. Yep. So does he want to fight for the backup job, assuming Arch stays? And then from there, they had a defensive lineman, Melvin Hills III, who announced just recently that he's going into the portal. I would certainly expect some more, maybe in the backfield, maybe backup guys on both sides, and might be some surprises in the skill position as well. As agents are out there gauging what they can get. I don't think it's any more about being unhappy as it is, like a C.J. Baxter. You can understand that. He just needs a fresh start, some new scenery, and then, we'll see with some other guys. But they're going to lose, I would say, at least 5 to 8 guys that we would see play in that Citrus Bowl that probably won't be on the roster, especially when you count Anthony Hill, the linebacker who declared for the draft. And I would imagine we might see a little bit more of that. DJ Campbell, the offensive lineman. I'm not sure if it's in his best interest to play another football game. He's been known to get nicked up a little bit too.
Right, absolutely. Before we flip it over to hoops, let's hear from Coach Steve Sarkisian, who has a pretty big month ahead.
I think there's obviously a level of disappointment of not making the CFP. I thought that we put a body of work on the field. We stated our case. They made their decisions of who they felt was worthy and deserving of being the 12 teams to play in that tournament. And you have to respect that. This is an opportunity to play another game against a really good team in a great game, a great bowl game, and we're going to cherish it. We're going to put our best foot forward and try to go win this game.
Let's move over to hoops now. On the women's side, we just talked last week about a big win over South Carolina. They got another big win there as well. What do you make of this team here in the early part of the season, really showing that they're the upper crust of college basketball?
Yeah, it's hard to argue with the resume so far with 4 ranked wins, 3 in the top 10, depending on your poll. The most recently, North Carolina. They kind of were sluggish a little bit in that game and then pulled away, but they're getting a little bit healthier. Brianna Preston's a sophomore point guard that will certainly add some depth in the backcourt. And then they have a transfer from Missouri that hasn't played yet, Ashton Judd, who they think will help them, maybe not until SEC players. So that's been one of the concerns is the depth with this team, but they seem to have that right ingredients, primarily on the defensive end, the willingness to guard 94 feet. So it's just going to be a matter of can they stay healthy and can, make big plays in ball games. They got to play LSU twice. They got to go to South Carolina. Ole Miss is really good. They got to go to Vanderbilt. So, they've got a couple more. They go to Brookings, South Dakota, guys, in a week and a half to play a non-conference game against South Dakota State. They thought they would have a South Dakota native on their roster, Jacqueline Wenentanda, but she transferred to Vanderbilt. So the allure of that trip is lost a little bit. And then Wednesday, they're going down to the Valley here in Texas, UT Rio Grande Valley. They like to go down there every few years because they get a huge crowd, and it's a huge Texas fan base about 6 hours away from Austin. But they'll open up against Missouri on the road the day after Texas plays that Citrus Bowl in the SEC. But it's hard to argue that they don't have all the ingredients, and Vic Schaefer teams traditionally get better as the season goes on. So we'll see if they can stay healthy, and if players can continue to progress.
Roger, obviously Jordan Lee had a really nice game against UNC. How much of a factor is she going to be playing once SEC play starts?
She's really important because of the way she can create her own shot, and she could do a lot of different things offensively. She'll pull up from three on a 3-on-1, which makes Vic Schaefer cringe, but sometimes you have to live with that a little bit. But she can get into the mid-range. She's got some quickness, and she's big enough where she can create some things inside. She's a really good defensive player. We saw her at the end of last year really emerge, and we saw her in Vegas have a couple of big games. I think she's really important. I think that was a great one to bring up because you kind of know what you're getting with a Madison Booker and a Rory Harmon. They got the two bigs, and she's a real X factor for this team.
Absolutely. Roger, thank you so much for not only your time and your expertise, but also not eviscerating us for our Notre Dame takes.
Oh, I'm sure I'm getting eviscerated by anybody because we know what Notre Dame evokes emotionally from people.
Absolutely. But all your points are fair ones, and I didn't even think about the scheduling part of it, and that is a huge one. So Notre Dame not playing in a bowl game, and that is stamp of approval by Roger Wallace there as well. In fact, I'd do the same thing if I were Notre Dame as well. Roger, thank you again so much for your time here on Southeast Sports Plus.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Absolutely. Roger Wallace joining us from Austin. Obviously, his college football background, basketball background is legendary, and so it was great to get his takes there. And he said on the front end, he's a bit of a homer from Notre Dame, but it all worked out.
Yeah, I mean, it is fair. I mean, Notre Dame obviously didn't expect the ACC to have a down year, but I mean, just don't. I don't understand the comments because from the athletic director because they can be taken and it's such a negative light, basically just bashing the ACC for everything. So I mean, it was just a little bit interesting. But I mean, they're out. You need to expand it, and then that's fine.
Emotions are running high. You just hope that the College Football Playoff Committee will tweak some things going into next year. Coming up next year on Southeast Sports Plus, we touched on the Texas-Michigan game. Find out where other SEC teams are playing their bowl games. Coming up next. Well, the college football playoffs are out and the other bowls are out. We'll take a look at the SEC teams that are going bowling, the ones that did not say no to a bowl. And there was a few of those as well. Starting out with the Missouri Tigers. This is a really interesting matchup here against Virginia there in that Gator Bowl.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think our friend Kevin Ryan said that a Gator Bowl is the realistic projection. So we'll have to give him his kudos there on that one. So it'll be interesting. It's a Virginia team that's obviously heartbroken. Some of the images of Chandler Morris after the game. I mean, it hurts you as a former athlete, because I mean you were so close to making the playoff, and then Duke just pulled out the upset there with the interception in overtime, and then LSU playing Houston, and Roger just talked about it. Houston is staying in Houston.
They're right there, staying in their own city. It's hilarious the way that these things are kind of divvied out. I know South Alabama played basically a home game a couple of years ago there at Hancock Whitney Stadium. LSU obviously won't be coached by Lane Kiffin, I don't imagine. I believe it would be Coach Wilson, who's the interim coach, and it's the right thing to do to give him his time there. But that's a pretty decent matchup there against Houston.
Yeah, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Houston did pull out the victory there. I mean, Houston's been playing well. It really seems like ever since Dana Holgorsen left the program, it's just been on the up and up, especially coming into the Big 12. Moving it right along here, Tennessee's playing Illinois in Nashville right after, I mean, not really right after, I mean, it'll be about a month, but if we just saw this past weekend, which we'll touch on in hour 2, Tennessee played Illinois in men's basketball in Nashville, and it didn't end so well. So, I feel like the bowl selection here was like, you know what, we'll give them a second try.
Yeah, give them another shot there. And it's another Tennessee team versus another team that wears orange. Had the same basically dance with Syracuse in both basketball and in football, doing the same dance in the Fighting Illini. I expect there to be a lot of orange there, especially with the Tennessee Volunteers. An interesting matchup here between the Iowa Hawkeyes and Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I don't know how, and we'll talk with Corey Curtis here in hour number 2 about this selection, but I thought Vanderbilt might have been a candidate for the Pop-Tarts Bowl, but this will be a little bit interesting. I'm intrigued on if Diego Pavia is going to be playing. I think Clark Lee said he expects both Pavia and Eli Stowers to play, so I'm interested to see how he stacks up against that Iowa defense.
That defense, exactly. That defense has been nice for a really long time now under Coach Ferentz. And then the Texas-Michigan game that we talked about a little while ago, and Mississippi State. Let's see if they can get Jeff Lebby the Mayo.
Yeah, the Mayo Bowl. It's traditionally a bowl played between the ACC and the Big 12, but I think because Iowa State and Kansas State both opted out, they were like, Mississippi State, come on, you want to get some Mayo on Jeff Lebby? Yeah, come out to Charlotte, North Carolina.
I'm rooting for that outcome 100% for Lebby to get the Mayo. Coming up next here, Southeast Sports Plus, hour number 2. Stay with us.
In our neck of the woods, sports is tradition. Sports is passion. Sports is family. Sports is fun. Welcome to our house. This is Southeast Sports Plus Live with Simone Eli and Gerhard Mathangani.
We talked last week about Georgia. Do they have an Alabama problem? Well, Saturday they proved they do not. The Georgia Bulldogs are your SEC champions after getting revenge over the Crimson Tide. A blowout game there in Atlanta 2 weeks in a row. Kirby Smart and his team were at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. 28-7 the final score, as Georgia not only solidifies their spot in the college football playoff, also playing really well and holding Alabama to, that is not a misprint, -3 rushing yards. We'll dive into that here in the second hour of Southeast Sports Plus. Gerhard Mathangani joined by Patrick Walsh. Patrick, I think when the line came out, everybody was scratching their heads a little bit, so to speak, because Georgia was a small favorite, even though Alabama beat them at home. But they left no doubt, and it started with the special teams getting a big play on the special teams side, started the scoring, and I think the defense might have been the best we have seen so far.
I think we talked about on Friday how I was kind of concerned that this might be a little bit of a defensive slugfest because you look at the Alabama offense as of late, it hasn't been that great, and then the Georgia offense against Georgia Tech, and I mean, some of the numbers were like, whoa, like, is this Georgia team here for real? But I think there were quick 3 and outs to start the game, and I'm like, oh boy, this is going to be a bad game. And then what did Kirby Smart talk about on College Game Day in the morning? It seems like every time they play in an SEC championship game, it's going to come down to one big special teams play. And what did it do? Literally, I believe it was like 7 minutes into the game, block punt, sets them right up inside the red zone. And honestly, it was wraps ever since then because Alabama could not get anything going all day.
They could not move the ball, and it was terrible for me for a lot of different reasons. Number one, because it took the over. The over was 49 and a half.
Here's the thing. He was talking to me during the game. I honestly almost fell asleep during the game.
It kind of was
because it was just like it's like that middle of the day. You know, there's not a lot of offense. I'm a big sucker for offense, and you texted me. He's like, oh man, you know, the over's 49. I almost feel like I need Georgia to win 49-0.
Yeah, exactly. No, sincerely. And I took it because I was like, okay, first game 24-21. That's 45 points. Maybe if I get a special teams play, if they could play the same way they did in the early game, and then I get either a big special teams play or a pick six, I'd go over the total. But Alabama's offense is like, and what that tees up, not just to tee up my losing bet, but what that tees up big picture is this Alabama offense, because it has to be concerning, not only if you're an Alabama fan, but just moving forward for this team, because the offense looked lights out for a very long time. We'll get into Georgia as well. We'll give them their kudos, but this offense is struggling over the last 3 to 4 games. Take out the Eastern Illinois game, and this offense is not looking good.
Yeah, I mean, you look after the Tennessee game, and I kind of talked about it when we were talking about the South Carolina game, which was the first game after and right before their second open week. It was like, okay, is there something to be concerned about here, or is this just because, you know, this is the last game of a brutal stretch against, at the time, 4 straight ranked opponents, and they became the first SEC team to beat 4 straight ranked opponents. And if you take out, one of the big things that we've been talking about is the run game, and obviously we just talked about it here with the SEC championship and the -3 yards rushing. Ty Simpson, I believe, had -26.
Right,
and it's just like he didn't really have any time to throw it or do anything with it. If you take out the Eastern Illinois game where they ran for over 250 yards, They're averaging 72.6 rush yards per game. That's worse than South Carolina, who's at the bottom and was known for having a terrible run game all year. I mean, it's become so one-dimensional that no wonder why Ty Simpson's been struggling. And I know Jam Miller was out. You're down to your third-string running back in Daniel Hill.
Injuries do play a factor for sure.
They do. But at the same time, I mean, Daniel Hill had a great game against Oklahoma. And, I mean, it's just getting to the point where it's like, this is the time of year where injuries do start to rack up. But, I mean, Georgia was out there starting center, and it seems like they didn't skip a beat.
Especially on offense. They were able to do all that without Drew Bobo offensively for this team. And you mentioned it, that since that Tennessee game, they had put together a nice string there where both sides were playing really well. And even this Alabama defense has been playing well as well. But there's only so much you can do when there's one, I think it was a 12-yard drive and one 20-yard drive just because of the way the offense and the special teams worked. But this is a team to me that you're asking Ty Simpson to throw on a cape every week. And he just too much. It's too much for him.
And the one thing that I really want to point out here is that stat on the bottom, 10 turnovers. I mean, that's just brutal. I know 2 of them were against Eastern Illinois, and the 2
kind of throw them away,
the 2 picks.
Whatever, but still.
But it was the 3 turnovers against Oklahoma that sealed the deal. And hey, Alabama fans, you're going to have to get used to Oklahoma because you're going to Norman in a couple weeks.
While this graphic is up, quick question for you. Do you think that this right here is a kind of a canary in the coal mine situation where you're getting remnants of what this team will look like in the college football playoff and maybe a quick early exit? Or do you think that they could revert to what they were when they were on that winning streak that you just mentioned and put on a nice run? Because we saw Ohio State last year lose to Michigan, and everybody was coming for Ryan Day, both figuratively and literally, and then they ripped off 4 straight wins. They found that thing. Is Alabama in a position to find that thing when they were on that winning streak?
No.
Okay.
And here's why. Ohio State had a home game last year against Tennessee, who at the time had a pretty good defense, but playing at home helps a ton.
Oh, for sure.
Now you're going up against what, in my opinion, is the second best defense in all of college football behind, I would say, Ohio State. And Indiana is a close third, in my opinion. You cannot run the football. Like Holden Kuzmark's been, shouting it until
he has.
I mean, it's just been like all year. Hey, why did they run the football? Why did they run the football against Oklahoma? Well, Alabama can't run the football, period. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, I talked about the Ty Simpson pass attempts against Oklahoma last time. I wouldn't be surprised if he threw for 50 times this game. Because that's all Alabama can do. Ohio State had a awful game against Michigan last year. And one of the most unconceivable losses in a year with so many inconceivable losses. Just look at Notre Dame and Northern Illinois. But the fact that this game is in Norman, it's too far out to know what the weather's going to be like, but I can't imagine it to be amazing against an Oklahoma team. And again, it's hard to beat a team twice. I totally understand it. But when your offense is so out of sync like it is right now, there's just it almost feels like, okay, good. Kalen DeBoer, you did good in year 2. You got to the college football playoff. You couldn't do that last year. But it's just like you're just not there yet. And I don't know. I don't want to hate on Ty Simpson by any means because if you do go back to the game, to the SEC championship game, he just had no time. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier in the year about where it just feels like the offensive line kind of underperforms under him. And it goes back to the Nick Saban adage of you got to control the line of scrimmage. And this Alabama team made the Georgia pass rush look like pass rushes of years past. And that's been a weakness this year.
It made it look like the Philadelphia Eagles last year or the Baltimore Ravens in years past. It looked unbelievable. I find an interesting through line here, and I'll see if you pick up on it. The game against Georgia, pass attempts for Ty Simpson, 39. The game against Oklahoma, 42. The game against Florida State, 43. When you ask him to put on a cape is when they lose. Their wins, here are his pass attempts. He was 17 for 17, of course, against ULM, 29 against Wisconsin, 38 against Georgia the first time around, 31 against Vanderbilt, 31 against Missouri, 29 against Tennessee, 43 against South Carolina. But that was the game where they had to basically win that game in overtime, and they didn't look good in that. They could very easily lost that football game. So I think whenever he hits that 40, 42, 43 pass attempts, that's what shows you Bama's in true danger of losing.
But to be fair, I will say this about that. The Florida State game, they were down early, and they were just in pass-only situations. The South Carolina game, it was like that in the fourth quarter. I mean, it took Jeremy Bernard to literally save the day for them. Or they would have 4 losses. Actually, they wouldn't even have made the SEC championship game. And they would have had 3 losses and been out regardless. I mean, the only reason why, in my opinion, they made it is because they made the SEC championship game, and we set a precedent last year. We went on and on about this in hour 1 about how you cannot punish teams because of SMU last year. But the only game that really sticks out to me is the Oklahoma game, because that's the one game of those that you named where they weren't chasing a lead early. And that's what kind of scares me. Because you also have to figure out, hey, is Jam Miller going to be back? I don't think so.
No.
I mean, I don't think he's going to be back for the Oklahoma game.
Yeah, me neither. And so you're going to ride with these guys going in, and we'll see what they do. But we got a chance to hear from Ty Simpson about this offense that's struggling a little bit, but he believes they can turn it around.
Yeah, we have a standard, right, as an offense in general. We think that, we know we're the best offense in the country. And then when we don't show it right, like, it's very frustrating, especially times when, we're just, a couple things away. So, like I said, credit to Georgia's defense, right? Like, they had a good plan. And, that's just pretty much simple as that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not nervous at all, right? Like, it's not up to me. I think that our resume speaks for itself. We went through a gauntlet of a schedule. SEC is the best conference in the country. That's a really good team. And, that's pretty much simple as that, right? Like, we went through a tough schedule, and we're the most resilient team in the country. And everything, our resume speaks for itself.
So let's turn our attention now to the actual winners of the SEC championship game. It is Kirby Smart and Georgia. And this is a team you have to give them their kudos. You have to give them their props, because they went into the game obviously feeling good about themselves because they'd won 8 straight after losing to Alabama in the regular season. And it just feels like this team is right now riding a momentum that can win you a championship. The way that they're playing right now on both sides of the ball reminds me of a team that is peaking at the right time.
Yeah, and honestly, I think this is Kirby Smart's greatest masterpiece, because he was just able to steer the ship on defense. We had talked about it all year long. Ty Simpson had his way with the defense earlier in the year, and it just feels like that group has slowly progressed into a top-tier defense that we've known Georgia to be. And obviously, the block punt was the big one to start the offense there, and I mean, it really kind of just started the spiral of doom for Alabama. I know you got the hoodie of doom. Well, this is the spiral of doom. And then the run game, 6 carries for minus 28 yards for Ty Simpson. And, they exercised some demons against the Tide, because, I mean, that's their first time ever beating them in an SEC championship game. And Kirby Smart's second win against them, both in championship-esque games.
Yeah, and this is now, I believe they're now 4-0 in rematches. So it lets you know, when they lose that first game, it's Kirby Smart and that coaching staff. There's a brilliant coaching staff there, both offense and defense, that they're able to rally their guys and come back better. That shows you great coaching, in my opinion. And speaking of great coaching, Kirby Smart and company got a big special teams play to really set this one on fire here. Here's Coach Kirby Smart after the game.
Just an unbelievable kid. I mean, he sacrificed so much for this program. I mean, it gets me emotional thinking about it, because we had a team meeting on Friday, and we spoke to the team, and I spoke to the team, and Drew Brannon, 5 players, and it was a very moving talk. And he had coaches come down and talk about the 5 seniors. He had Micah Morris. He had Dalen Everett talked about by his coach. So Dante came and talked about him. Dylan Bell and Cole Spear, Coach Coley came down and talked about him. And then I was actually the 4th, so it was 4 players. And he put on the screen how many days they had been at Georgia. And he put on the screen how many days potentially they had left. And it was like they have 1%. I mean, I think they had been there 1,200 days at Georgia, because they're all 4th and 5th year players. And basically, Coach Coley talked about Cole Spear's sacrifices. He got to be a really competitive receiver in the spring. He was playing really good, and then he got an injury in the spring game, and it set him back. And he never flinched. He never complains. He just does what he's asked to do. He's extremely fast and physical. And think about those players that Drew talked about and had their coaches come talk about. Dylan Bell scores touchdown tonight, huge in the game. Dalen Everett gets interception, huge in the game. And then Cole Spear blocks the punt. And Oscar played well also. And, you know, before he finished, he said, you know, stand up if you've beaten Alabama in a game. I mean, none of them stood up.
They can all stand up now, and Coach talks about how close they are. This is a team that I think if you're anybody in college football right now, you do not want to play the Georgia Bulldogs. They are all absolutely on fire.
No, and I think after the Florida game where they just squeaked by their rivals, I would have said, no, this team is not a college football playoff winner in my eyes. And now here they are. I think they are a true national title contender.
Absolutely. Tulane or Ole Miss. That is the matchup that Georgia is waiting on in the All-State Sugar Bowl coming up in the college football playoff. Coming up next here on Southeast Sports Plus, we head over to Nashville and talk some college football and some pro football with our friend Corey Curtis next. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, hour number 2 continues. We head over to Nash Vegas. That's where we see our good buddy Corey Curtis. And we were talking football, both college and pro. We'll obviously start on the college side. You hit it on the head last week. You did not expect Vandy to get in. I think that your expectations were in a good place, unlike Notre Dame fans who thought all weekend they were probably getting in, and then they're on the outside looking in. After the college football playoff bracket is out, I'm interested, given your longevity of covering this sport, how did it land for you when you saw those final 12 teams?
Well, I didn't like it.
Yeah,
I mean, but it was going to be hard for everybody to like it because there's 15 playoff worthy teams this year.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody was getting let out. Now for me, my bottom line is I don't want a 3-loss team in there.
Okay.
If you don't want, if you're worried about a 3rd loss in the conference championship, don't play the conference championships anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what? You don't have to. They don't mean anything.
Right.
They don't mean. You don't. You can say, well, the conference champions determine who gets the automatic bid. Well, then just give it to your regular season champion and give them the automatic bid. You're creating an extra game to make money. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And for it, winning and losing to count for one team and not to count for another is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we saw that this weekend. And also we saw the committee. If you thought Miami was better than Notre Dame, just put them ahead of Notre Dame for the last month.
Yes. Yeah.
But we knew what they were doing last week. When they moved Alabama ahead of Notre Dame. They're like, okay, well, this way we're going to protect Alabama if they lose. And then, then we can move Miami up to protect the ACC, past Notre Dame. Look, I just want the best 12 teams in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know there are people, especially in the Southeast, who do not like Notre Dame. You cannot convince me Notre Dame is not one of the 12 best teams in the country. They lost on the final possession of the first 2 games of the year against 2 playoff caliber teams. And if you asked who was the favorite now, Notre Dame or Miami, if they played, it would overwhelmingly be Notre Dame. Because here's the other thing. Those 2 losses were the first 2 weeks of the season. And this goes for everybody, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You're allowed to get better.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right? You're allowed to get better. And yes, every game has to mean something, but you also have to consider how much better has this team gotten as the season has gone along.
Right.
And, Miami losing badly to some not so great teams doesn't speak real well for them. And I just think Notre Dame is a better team than them, number one. Put in who you want for Alabama, because I don't think they should have been in with 3 losses. I'm sorry, especially when they lost by 3 touchdowns.
The way they lost is, you can make an argument.
Yeah. Well, you punished BYU for losing badly.
Yeah, true.
I mean, because you appear like, well, BYU wasn't in. Look, if BYU were 11-1, do you think they'd be in? It'd have to be,
Probably
right?
so, yeah, absolutely.
It'd have to be.
Yeah.
So you punish them.
Mm-hmm.
But you left them out of your top 12 because you needed to protect yourself in case they lost. This way you could say, well, the conference championship didn't really mean anything. They weren't in the top 12. They knew how to stack the deck to justify their cases, but their cases stink. But, look, like I said, somebody's going to be – I'm sure Texas is angry that they're left out.
Yeah.
But they lost 3 games. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You lost 3 games. BYU, you played 2 playoff caliber teams and you got smoked. It was the same team twice. And by the way, the team that beat you has a strength of schedule in the 50s.
Yeah, right.
So, which leads to do we really think Texas Tech deserves a first round bye?
I personally do.
Do you? Okay.
I honestly think that team is constructed the same caliber as an SEC team. Like they could compete.
They're
in the
the
SEC.
highest bankroll in college football.
Oh,
but they haven't beaten anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and the 2 teams they did, because obviously the Big 12 was very weak this year, but the 2 teams they did was the same team twice.
Barring some miracle, they'll have Oregon, and I honestly think that they might beat Oregon by double digits.
They might. I mean, look, that's the great thing about this is because like last year we went in and we were wondering if Ryan Day was going to get fired.
Yeah.
I mean, they had fans openly pulling for him to lose that game to Tennessee so that they could fire him. And,
right.
Right now, I would not be surprised if they ended up winning the whole thing.
So I have a question here for you, and
yeah.
I know when we expanded it to 12 teams, we wanted to get the best 12 teams in.
Yeah.
Do you think that you already know what I'm going to ask?
Yeah. Do we have the best 12 teams?
Well, do you think the group of 5 should always have a spot?
It's difficult for me because I went to Southern Illinois, which is a 1AA school and a mid-major in college basketball, and I'll never forget my freshman year when we went 27-5 and we lost our conference championship and we got left out.
Yeah.
Because we lost the conference championship game at a host site final against the host. Some things stick with you. That sticks with me. And it's tough, as you've seen from Vanderbilt, to overcome perception, right? I mean, because you start outside the poll, you have to work your way in. As Vanderbilt found out, teams got punished more for losing to you than they did for losing to other teams.
Right.
Because the perception is you're not good and you can't compete. We had this perception about Boise State not too long ago, right? And they went and they just, who did they steamroll in the Fiesta Bowl? Oklahoma?
Oklahoma, yeah.
Yeah. And it turns out Boise State became a pretty good program. Gonzaga was a mid-major basketball program.
Yeah.
Butler was a mid-major basketball program who appeared in back-to-back finals. I don't mind giving them a seat at the table. You know what? I wouldn't mind that they have to be ranked to get in, like in the top 25, or maybe even in the top 20. If you had some logistics that some requirements, because like the ACC this year, I mean, do they have any playoff? I mean, they've got Miami,
but they didn't even
really
make the
championship game. I mean, if Virginia gets in, Miami's not in.
Right. Yes, that's another great point.
And we don't think Virginia is a playoff caliber team, do we?
No, not at all.
No. So so you don't know. I guess there's some bias on this. I don't know that the Big 12 is, that I'm that impressed with that league. Where how good are they? I don't know. I don't know. Now, I mean, like Arizona State last year gave everybody a run.
Yeah.
They got hot.
Yeah.
And that's why 2 seats at the table. I don't know that we'll see this again.
Yes.
But it's the ACC's fault, 100%. I mean, that league is so bad now that's what created this, and you lost one of the best teams. We all know they're going to 16, right?
Oh, for sure.
And,
yes. That's not time.
I can't imagine. I guess the problem when you go to 16 is all the 3 lost teams will now be considered playoff worthy.
Correct.
And so you have a bigger pool of playoff worthy. And I think we all can sit here and look at this with a straight face and say, if you've got 3 losses, you're probably not a championship contender. Realistically. So in the future, when the 3 lost teams get in, maybe one will win it. I'm not going to expect that. It's like, do we, the NCAA tournament adding the play-in games, how many of those play-in teams make a run to the Final Four?
Yeah. Well, it's like, and maybe sometimes in that 10-7, I think the 10 seeds matchup or whatever, you've seen, like, I think it was Virginia Commonwealth go from the first 4 to the Final Four, but it's so rare, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah.
But and that might be part of it. But it's going to be interesting.
Right.
No, you just don't ever see that.
No. Exactly.
No.
Yeah. Let's stay close to home for you with the quarterback, QB1 of the Vanderbilt Commodores, Diego Pavia. He was the talk of the town, and now he's got a chance to go to the largest city in America and bring back probably the highest profile individual award in sports, the Heisman Trophy. There you see his odds as we sit right now. You called it to a T about Vandy's playoff chances. What about Pavia's chances to come back with the Heisman?
I told you in the break, I believe he will get the most first place votes, but I don't believe he will win the trophy. I think he should win the trophy. I think there will be a bias against him that will cost him. And by that, I mean, he should be on every ballot, just like Fernando Mendoza should be on every ballot. Whether it's first, second, or third, those 2 guys should be on every ballot. But there will be ballots, and I'm confident Mendoza will be on every ballot, but I'm not confident that Pavia will be on every ballot because he plays at Vanderbilt and because he's not in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think those are two horrible reasons. But I think that's it. Do you think if Deion Sanders was his coach, he'd win the Heisman?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he'd have enough pub, and then it lets you know that it's a popularity contest more so than it is an actual, crowning the best player in college football.
I mean, that kind of leads into my question because, going into this, I was all on I'm pretty sure I said this to you, I was all on the Diego Pavia should win Heisman. He should win the Heisman this year, and I think it's so funny that in college football, conference championships are still counted towards regular season play. It's just it's so funny to me. What were you gonna say?
Well, we say they don't matter for the playoffs. But now we're gonna count. And believe me, I don't cast my Heisman ballot until I watch every game.
Right.
All right. So every game matters. The thing that I don't understand is people, and I heard this from several people, read this from several people, that Mendoza's throw in the fourth quarter to ice the game won him the Heisman.
No.
I'm like, they scored 13 points.
Right.
And it was a fade. It was a simple fade.
Yeah, and he was open.
Right.
He had a clean pocket. He was open, and you're a starting quarterback in the Big Ten. Make the throw, right?
His two Heisman moments have been a simple fade route and his wide receiver bailing him out.
Oh, yeah, the Penn State game.
Penn State game.
Yeah.
He is absolutely worthy of being in New York. And he is absolutely worthy of voting for. But you can't tell me there's a better player in college football. You can't tell me there's a guy who did more for his team. You can't tell me that Fernando Mendoza would win 10 games at Vanderbilt.
Right.
Like Diego Pavia did this year.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty confident if Pavia was at Indiana, they'd be undefeated.
So
that's kind of where I'm at.
So my question was going to be, you don't think that Julian Sayin or Fernando Mendoza played bad enough for Diego Pavia to jump him? Because that's the one thing I was watching the Big Ten Championship for was, okay, maybe if Mendoza and Sayin both have bad games, then Pavia could jump.
I'm going to disagree with you on one aspect. He should have been the winner going into that game, and I don't believe either guy played well enough to surpass him.
Okay, that makes sense.
They scored a combined 23 points.
Right.
Guys, the Titans scored 31 yesterday. All right? So, I'm sorry.
Is the world ending?
What's that?
Is the world ending?
Yeah, it really is. I could go on and on about that one. The over-under on that game was 33
yeah.
and they combined to score 60.
Right,
was, and that's what makes the NFL the best sports league.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because it's that box of chocolates, man. You never know what you're going to get.
Never know. Vandy's got another game against Iowa. I won't lie, I saw that matchup and I was like, it feels a little ho-hum, but you got a chance to meet up with one of the most iconic coaches in the sport as far as longevity goes, and Diego Pavia lining up against that defense. What do you make of the matchup?
I think the the playoff committee loves that matchup.
Oh, for sure.
Because even, look, I expect Vandy to win, but what does Iowa do? They turn every game into a rock fight. I mean, and so Vanderbilt might win 18-16 or whatever, but they're going to have a hard time winning this game by 21 points.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, the nightmare, well, not nightmare, but like the pie in the face for the committee is if Vanderbilt wins this thing by 30. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the committee, of course, just hoping and praying Iowa wins.
No doubt.
But yeah, and so it's a tough matchup because they could play defense, and let me say this: I went to Vanderbilt's press conference yesterday. Clark Lee was more gracious, humble, and accepting than any coach I've ever seen in that situation before.
Yeah.
I mean, I asked the first question out of the gate. Did you think about doing what Notre Dame did and saying we're not going to play? And he was like, absolutely not. We want to play football around here. And the chance to spend 23 more days with these guys and play a 13th game for me is the gift of all gifts. And then he said, the most powerful thing he said, we are not victims in this process. We didn't do enough. We had our fate in our hands at Alabama, and maybe we put another touchdown on the board. We didn't do enough. We have to accept that we didn't do enough. Had we done more? And I think that is really the big boy way to approach it. There are plenty of people to disagree with it for him, but if he wants to get his team ready to play the next game, that's what he needs to do.
That's the mindset, and we got a chance to hear from Coach in that presser.
I mean, it's an opportunity to go play well, but I want to stop short of trying to prove people wrong. I think I see the game as a celebration. I want it to be about the group of guys that have come together and made for a historic and special season. And like I said, we get one more chance here together. I want to enjoy it. I want to be there for it. And it's important. Bowl games are fun, but they're more fun when you win. So this isn't going to be about how and we're going to enjoy ourselves, but we need to keep mission focused here. And we talked about that today as a team, and I trust this group to do that. But we'll enjoy the moment. We won't make it about anything other than Vanderbilt football.
As always, Coach Clark Lee just saying all the right things, and I thought it was a dynamic statement. Very, very well put. Let's flip over to basketball. This Vanderbilt Commodore team. Hey, this is.
Whoa!
You said on the front end, hey, this is a team that could be a little dangerous. You said the same thing about football. You were forecasting football. Right. Football lands.
They're not just a baseball school anymore.
Oh, I know.
No. Women's basketball's good too, guys. And the women's soccer team just went to like the Elite Eight. So
exactly.
They've got it rolling. Look, Mark Byington liked this team a lot coming into this season. Thought they were better than last year when they were a tournament team. And so I was just like, look, I doubted Mark Byington big time last year. I thought it was an uninspired hire, and I was absolutely 110 billion% wrong. He did a fantastic job last year, and he is right on the money this year. He has a team that can just flat out score the basketball.
Yeah.
They're bigger than they were, which is what they wanted to be, but that hasn't taken away from their ability to put the ball in the basket. You see, that's Tyler Tanner, a young man from Brentwood Academy here, who's having a monstrous year. And they're really deep. They've got a guy, and they only brought back 3 players, but they've got a lot of guys who can score. They're one of 8 undefeateds left or something like that in college basketball, ranked 14th in the country. And again, started the year outside the poll, having to work their way up. If they start the year with more respect, they're in the poll. They might be a top 10 team right now.
Right.
But you got a long way to go to get there in college basketball. It's a little bit different because there's a lot more games. But they had SMU here for that big SEC ACC challenge, and SMU came in 8-0.
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know a lot of people thought that was going to be Vanderbilt's first loss. Like the outlets were like, SMU's just going to come in and roll. But what I've seen here recently this year, it feels like this is the year of the blowout, where there's just blowouts galore across all of college basketball. And in my opinion, I think we knew coming into this year that the SEC wasn't going to be as good as it was last year. I don't think anybody thought 14 teams were going to get in. But I almost feel like the SEC is having a major down year. Do you think this is a great opportunity for Vanderbilt to kind of take the SEC silently?
Well, maybe. Look, they're better. Well, you're saying other programs are down. They're better. So if that's the case, they have a chance to make that move. We just saw Tennessee lose to Syracuse in that ACC challenge. And then they lost they played Illinois here Saturday in Nashville, and they lost by double figures.
Yeah.
Today they also announced that Cade Phillips is out for the rest of the season. But I know one thing about Rick Barnes. His teams are better at the end of the year than they are at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So I'm confident Tennessee is going to be a good basketball team.
Yeah.
I think Stephen Pearl has a ton to prove down at Auburn. 100%. Alabama came in with some lofty expectations. Well, let's see where everybody. It is so early.
Yeah.
It is so early. Let's see where everybody's at when February is here and we've started conference play, and And it just means more.
Right. The SEC motto. Before we let you go, we want to talk little Tennessee Titans there as well.
All right, let's do it. They won a game.
Yeah, you finally won a game.
They did it.
And looked really good in the process against a team that came in with a highly touted quarterback themselves.
Well, it wasn't the quarterback they were worried about. It was the defense and Myles Garrett. This is the second-ranked defense in the NFL. We were worried that not only was Garrett going to set the single-season sack record, but the single-game sack record, which is 7 by Derek Thomas. So seriously, that was the conversation all last week: is how big of a game is Myles Garrett going to have? And the Titans coaching staff, I haven't said this very often, deserves really high marks for this football game because the offensive line played their best game in literally years.
Yeah.
They gave up 1 sack the entire game. 1 sack. And that was on a stunt. So Garrett didn't win his rep. He stunted around all the way from right end to left guard and looped in and got a clear path to the quarterback and got his sack. Other than that, they stoned him. And it started right off the bat because, guys, I am a broken record when you face big pass rushers. The best way to go after a pass rusher is to run the football right at them. You wear those suckers out, all right? And look, Myles Garrett knew what everybody was talking about. He was in pass rush mode.
Yep.
He was like, I'm getting 10 today, baby.
Yeah.
I am going to set records. And so he's running these big looping pass rushes, and they're running right at him, and he's pass rushing his way right out of the play.
Yeah.
And so he's out of the play by himself and opening it up for another blocker. They ran for 180 yards yesterday. Guys, this is the number 2 defense against the worst rushing offense in the NFL, and they rushed for 180 yards. Tony Pollard
still got it.
He had a 65-yard touchdown and a 35-yard touchdown.
Yep.
And if you throw both of these runs out, he still had more yards than they were averaging a game.
Yeah, exactly.
All right?
Yeah.
So the offensive line deserves a ton of credit. The coaching staff, absolutely, because we pound on coaching staffs.
Right.
They deserve a ton of credit for the way they attacked Myles Garrett and this game plan. They should have won this football game going away. They had a defensive meltdown in the fourth quarter that allowed them to get back in it. And really, if Kevin Stefanski just kicks extra points, this one's probably headed to overtime.
So my question for you, no offense to the Titans or anything, it's on.
Dude, they're 2-11. You can't offend them.
It's on the Browns because I am appalled that Stefanski had Shedeur Sanders on the sideline for the game-tying 2-point conversion. I mean, what explanation is there for that?
Well, it's a play they ran in practice. They liked a lot.
Give me a break, man.
It's ridiculous.
Okay,
you're not Ben Johnson.
And by the way, when you snap the ball to the running back, everybody knows what you're doing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
When you snap the ball to the quarterback, there are options. And by the way, look, I'm not a huge Shedeur Sanders fan. I'm not a huge Shedeur Sanders hater. I'm not in that rat race. But he threw the ball well.
Yeah.
And he had a couple of nice throws in the red zone as well. He got you there. He got you to the spot of going for the tie. Why punish him?
Yeah.
Why take him out of the game?
You know what?
And could coaches think they're smarter than they should? That's what I know.
He exemplifies everything Vanderbilt football has went through this year. He's been low on the depth chart, disrespected, and what does he do? He comes out and he's the best Browns quarterback there's been this season.
Yep.
I mean, it's just
that bar's low, but
but still, I mean, it's just shocking that he came in as QB4. Like, what are we doing?
That's insane.
Clearly there was some dissent in that organization over that selection.
No
he's like, you can pick him. I'm not going to play him. And look, I get it. I mean, I get all the detractions you had with selecting the young man. I mean, if I were a coach, I don't know if I'd want to deal with it because there's a lot that goes with it. But once he's on your team, he's on your team.
Yes.
And your job as a coach is to put every player on your team in the best position to succeed, not just the ones you like.
For sure. Absolutely. Corey, extended time with you, and thank you so much for your time. You've been absolutely amazing on everything from the Heisman Trophy to
I am.
And
look at this. I got a haircut today. I am on point.
Looking sharp.
Let's go.
Looking sharp. I love it. I love it. Awesome, man. Thank you for your time once again, sincerely.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, all the stuff.
Likewise.
Pavia for
brother.
Heisman.
Pavia for Heisman.
Yeah. You know what? Can I say I hope so? Am I allowed to?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
it's an SEC
it's like
show.
the playoffs. I want look. I want the best players
Mm-hmm.
to. I want the best teams to be in the playoff.
Yep.
I want the best players to win.
Oh, yeah.
to win the award.
By the way, he did win the Johnny Unitas award.
I saw that. Yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
Yes, I did see
Yeah.
that.
And like I said, the straw poll I heard, most first place votes didn't win though. And I think that was before the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't think he'll win.
Rough climb.
So,
Rough climb.
Yep.
You've been awesome. Thank you, brother.
All right, thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Corey Curtis joining us from Nashville. Coming up next here, we'll keep it on the court. The Auburn Tigers played a big game against Arizona. And we'll also take a look at the latest AP poll. That and more coming up next. Welcome back to Southeast Sports Plus. We talked a lot of football on the show. We talked some basketball as well. One of the big games that comes to mind is the Auburn Tigers, another huge non-conference game, playing now the new #1 team in the country in the Arizona Wildcats. And the reason why they're #1 right now is because what they did to Auburn. They absolutely blew Auburn off the court. Two great high-profile players here in Pettiford and Pete for Arizona, but the Wildcats continuing to show that they are solid.
I think we saw Koa Pete in the opener against Florida, and we were like, okay, I mean, for a freshman in his first game, this guy's pretty good. And now it's like, okay, this guy is 100% going to be a lottery pick in the NBA draft. I mean, we know how much the NBA likes one-and-dones, and it kind of gives a little bit of disrespect to like fourth-year, fifth-year seniors just because of the age. But I've been saying it all show. It feels like this is the year of the blowouts in college basketball, and these are two pretty good teams. I mean, obviously Auburn is no slouch at all, but two losses have been kind of shocking, so to speak, and then the close one against Houston. Look, in my opinion, I think Arizona is still the second best team in the country, but I also don't really I'm not angry that they're #1. I think Michigan is the #1 team just because they've been more consistent with the blowouts. It's hard to say that, but I mean It's just a little bit shocking, the defense or lack thereof for Auburn. But Gerhard Pettiford scoring 30 points. I mean, that if you're looking for one bright spot, I mean, he's definitely it. 'Cause outside of him, 38 total points.
Yeah, it was rough. Yeah, he scored 30 of the 68 points there in the game. And I think if you're Auburn, of course, there's no such thing as moral victories, but played a really close game against Houston in Birmingham, went on the road as a true road game. This wasn't a neutral site game. This game was in Tucson against Arizona. There you see Gerhard Pettiford's numbers. I think that Auburn as a complete team is when Pettiford has this kind of game. He doesn't have to score 30 necessarily, but when he has this kind of game and they're able to pair it with good defense, I think that Auburn's full form is somewhere in between what we've seen in the non-conference games and what we've seen in the kind of the 2 to 3 marquee games they've played.
And I think, yes, he can score 30 points, and yes, he's great at scoring, and obviously coming off the bench was a big impact last year. But I think the leadership values need to come out a little bit more. Yeah. And I know Stephen Pearl kind of was like, yeah, he scored 30 points, but him on the defensive end, that's something that I'm not really happy about. And I mean, he has to emerge as a leader here, one of the few guys that did come back from last year's squad that made it to the Final Four, that had a huge impact during that run. And he's just got to – I mean, it's going to take some time. And, again, it's early in the season, as Corey Curtis just said. It's a little bit too early to see, hey, where is this team going to fit in?
Right.
I still expect them to be in the top half of the SEC. They should make the tournament.
Yeah.
I just think as a 5 or a 6 seed. But if they want to reach their ceiling and have a deep run, he's just got to develop a little bit more as a leader, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we've seen a little bit of this from guys like a LeBaron Philon or guys like Mark Sears from before, where once your point guard, once your leader starts to take on that huge role of, hey, I'm going to put the team on my back, then you see the teams escalate. That's a good challenge for him, and as you mentioned, I think that Stephen Pearl does a good job of being able to motivate his guys to be able to take that next step.
The big thing is he's the point guard. If you look at this stat, the one that sticks out to me, 1 assist.
1 assist.
You cannot be the leader in the point guard and only have 1 assist.
Right. Yep.
It's just not. It's not good team basketball.
Exactly. Which kind of leads to what you said earlier, the fact that they only scored 38 points around him. He scored 30, and they only scored 38 around him because of things like that. And I'm sure they'll try to get it together. They have another big game coming up. I think they have Chattanooga in the non-conference. Meanwhile, Alabama will play now the new #1 team in the country in Arizona. We'll talk about that coming up tomorrow. A lot of basketball topics with another big week ahead for teams in and around the SEC. We'll take a look at the latest AP poll when we come back here on Southeast Sports Plus. Back here on Southeast Sports Plus, we are closing up an action-packed Monday here. Lots of great conversations with 2 veterans in the game, Roger Wallace and Corey Curtis. Appreciate their time and expertise as it relates to the college football playoff. Kind of the different side there of the talking point, so to speak. Of course, with Notre Dame, Roger had some very strong opinions there, and then Corey obviously has some strong opinions about teams that are getting in and not getting in. Appreciate them. But let's now turn to college basketball. Last week we had the ACC-SEC Challenge. I correctly predicted that the SEC would win. Didn't look good day 1. No. They did in day 2. The women's games were also great there as well, and it leads to these next rankings that are out. factored in those games this upcoming week.
Yes, UCLA at number 25. Virginia cracks the top 25, I believe. I might be wrong on this, for the first time since Tony Bennett stepped down before last year.
Yep.
Got that huge win over Texas. A little bit shocking there. Nebraska at 23. St. John's still trying to find themselves in Rick Pitino's second year there at the helm. And Auburn doesn't get penalized for the blowout loss to Arizona. And you brought up a good point before we came on the show. I think the NC State win had a little bit of an impact on that.
And St. John's before then, they were able to get a win in both those games. And so I think that's what kept them there in that top 25.
Yeah, moving inside the top 20 here. Tennessee, it seems like the Volunteers are just on a free fall right now, losing 3 straight games, just unable to find that identity right now. Jacoby Gillespie, I know we didn't talk about him today. We'll talk about him tomorrow with our friends over there in Knoxville. I believe he went 6 for 20 from the field. Not going to win a lot of games there.
No.
Kansas in there at 19. Todd Golden's Florida Gators in at 18. And, I mean, it's just a SEC-packed 5 teams there, with Arkansas picking up a huge win over Louisville in the ACC-SEC Challenge. And then Texas Tech with JT Toppin. I mean, that guy is unreal, and I mean, he just led the Red Raiders in a blowout over LSU.
Yeah, they're starting to turn into one of those schools where they're a little bit good at everything. They were good at football.
Oh, and the money's there.
Yeah,
It'll
exactly.
help.
That's exactly right. They got a big win there over LSU in the ACC, or not ACC Challenge. It was just a regular non-conference game, but blew out LSU there in that game.
I mean, it was not even close. And then another team getting a blowout as we go inside the top 15 here. Vanderbilt blew out SMU in the ACC-SEC Challenge. North Carolina, it looks like, they're not going to put their jeopardy in they're not going to put their fate in the hands of a committee this year. They're back.
Yeah, they certainly are.
Seems like
8-1 so far on the year, and when we talked about it, getting that big win there over Kentucky, then blew out Georgetown the week after that, leading to your point about this, all these blowouts that we have seen so far, and I think that they are. I don't know if they have another marquee game. I'll pull up their schedule. I don't know if they have another marquee game before, but they've played a really tough schedule there as well. Obviously, still they played Kansas, they played Michigan State, and then they've of course got the win over the Wildcats.
Yeah, it seems like they've been relying on the emergence of Henry Visar there over in Chapel Hill, Illinois, and Alabama, as well as Louisville, rounding out that group of 5 there as we go inside the top 10. BYU just missed out on the college football playoff. They're sitting at number 10 with A.J. DeBonsa over there in Provo. Michigan State in at number 9. Gonzaga, Houston, and Purdue after Purdue suffered its first loss of the season.
And not even just a loss. It was like they got run off the floor.
Another team getting run off the floor by Iowa State, which, I mean, they could be one of the best teams here as they moved up to 4. A contender to move up to number 1, but I like the decision here. I think this is how I would rank the top 5 teams here this year so far.
Right. Okay. So what you see right here, maybe flipping Michigan and Arizona.
Yeah. That's the one that I would maybe flip, just because Michigan, again, a little bit more consistent with the blowouts.
Yeah.
It's crazy that we're even saying that, but Duke is definitely the number 3 team. They suffered a little bit of a scare. They had to come from behind, but that's a good morale booster in a sense where it's like, okay, we're in any game, and especially with Cameron Boozer and Isaiah Evans. I mean, you're always going to be in a game, but that was a big win, obviously. And then we just talked about Iowa State with TJ Otzelberger. Maybe this is the year he gets over the hump. Maybe this is the year the Big 12 gets back on top.
Probably so, maybe so. And when you mentioned Arizona and Michigan, 2 quick points about that. Arizona got 33 first-place votes, and Michigan got 19. So there's a lot of people who think Michigan is the best team in the country. And to your point, the coaches poll, I know we highlight the AP poll here, but the coaches poll actually has Michigan number 1, Arizona number 2 as far as first-place votes go. 17 first-place votes for the Wolverine, 11 for Arizona. So it's telling you that those 2 teams are neck and neck there, but I think Michigan's resume to this point is better.
I know we're not doing overreactions yet, but this might be the one year where I could see there might be someone that finishes the regular season undefeated for the first time in a long time.
Absolutely. We'll chew on a lot more basketball coming your way tomorrow on Southeast Sports.